to introduce you to the session on cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. 10 years ago, Bitcoin introduced a new paradigm in computer science. The possibility of transferring value in digital networks without the need of a trusted third party. It is still early days, but the revolution ushered by Bitcoin has the potential to be as impactful as the internet was. We are going to hear about the landscape of the industry, the implications, and the applicability of this exciting technology. For this discussion, we'll have Ted Rogers, moderated by Fernando del Nero Gomes. Ted is the president of Zappo, the largest custodian of Bitcoin held by institutional investors in the world. He has worked in the financial services industry for nearly 20 years. Prior to Zappo, Ted co-founded and served as a general partner of Arpex Capital, an investment firm based in Brazil focused on FinTech, which I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with. Fernando is a partner in Nero Advogados, one of Brazil's top-tier law firms. He practices in the corporate law group and has advised financial institutions, insurers, payments and fintech companies, asset managers, financial sponsors, and other corporates in a wide array of mandates, ranging from M&A, structured finance, capital markets, restructuring, and general regulatory work. Please, let's put our hands together for Ted and Fernando.
So, good afternoon everyone. First of all, thank you for the organizing team for the invitation to be a moderator of this panel. Thank you, Ted, for accepting the invitation. It's going to be a very exciting panel about, and we left that for the end of the day because it's a pretty interesting subject and people are very excited about it. Crypto and blockchain, which is kind of wide. So congratulations to the organizing team, great event, great to see so many new friends, old friends, and you know, the crypto and blockchain, very wide subject covering a number of challenges, a number of disruption technology, and a number of opportunities in investing and payments and market infrastructure for financial services. So we have seen very groundbreaking crypto-based players, exchanges, and investors, and this has been going on for not a long time, but it has been exciting ever since. So I want to jump right into the first question to Ted here, who is the expert, and who's going to walk us through what he's seen on the market and the current status of the market. But your background with Arpex, and how does that relate to your getting into the blockchain and the Bitcoin world, and how that the Brazilian leg of your investments or with Arpex relate to the Bitcoin you're actually being with Zappo today, working with Bitcoin?
Okay, first of all, thank you all for coming. I know I'm biased, but I think this is the most important subject in technology today, and certainly the most important subject for FinTech. And in terms of my background at Arpex and how that relates to Bitcoin, a couple things. Number one, I sometimes kick myself, I pinch myself to think about the luck I had to work with Andreas Tamici and Eduardo Pontes at Arpex and see what they've built from there, and then also to end up at Zappo and work with Wences Casadas, who is an Argentine founder and entrepreneur. I think if I have developed any skill, it's just a nose for trying to partner with and help people that are extraordinarily talented in this space. One thing that I think helped in Brazil, spending time in Brazil, and I've been going to Brazil since 1999 because my wife is a Brazilian citizen, and I came to love the country, and I came to spend a lot of time down there. I realized I didn't understand money until I went to Brazil. Americans don't understand money because they don't have to understand money. They live with the world's reserve currency. They grow up with the world's reserve currency. They grow up with stable interest rates. And so they never have to think about what money is. They just pull a green piece of paper out of their pocket and they pay for it whatever they want. And they have cards that work well, they don't have to worry about. They have financial accounts. There's some underbanked people in the United States, but not really. But regardless, it wasn't until I got to Brazil and I began working with people and getting to know people that had experienced hyperinflation, that had experienced a change in currencies, that I began to think about what money actually was and what a store of value is and what a medium of exchange is. So that was essential to understanding Bitcoin. And I think one of the reasons Bitcoin is so misunderstood globally, but especially in the United States and in parts of Western Europe, is that people have never had to think about what money is. And Brazil gave me that.
And that's a good segue to what is, in your view, the current state of the, let's start with Bitcoin. There was a recent rally on the Bitcoin value following a year long of stability after 2017, in which the market went crazy up. And you were saying to me back there that you were most concerned when the market was going up than you were when the market went down. So what are your views on the Bitcoin market? Where is this going?
Yeah. So even the smartest people that I've known in crypto, it's still hard for me to call it crypto because I started out calling it Bitcoin, and I still believe Bitcoin is almost the be-all and all when it comes to crypto, but I call it crypto. Even the smartest people in crypto haven't been able to consistently predict the price, and I think it's a good idea not to try too much to do that. I do believe that Bitcoin will become the global reserve currency. It will replace gold. It may also become a day-to-day currency. I'm not sure, but gold has an $8 trillion market cap, and I think that Bitcoin will take a good percentage of that in the next 5 to 7 years. Given that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, you can kind of do the math on what that means in terms of the price of Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin is 5,200, and yes, it's starting to creep up, and people are getting excited. I have to admit, I don't care, because even going from 4,000 to 5,000 is a rounding error compared to what Bitcoin is going to be within 5 years. So, regarding your comment about the stress when Bitcoin's going up, that's true. A lot of us lived with, so I started at Zappo in January 2014, that's when we launched. The most stressful time, even beyond the bear market of 2014, 2015, was 2017, when the market was doing this. It was like we had built a car to kind of drive along the suburban streets, and all of a sudden someone put us in the Indianapolis 500. And it was, everything was kind of almost breaking. And people were having to stay up 24/7 to help people open up new accounts and buy Bitcoin and sell Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. So that was very, very stressful. It's a very difficult time, a wonderful time for Bitcoin, but the other thing that bothered me about it, to be honest, is that that was a time when a lot of people got into crypto that didn't really care or understand what this is all about. They wanted to get rich quickly. And so that was a downer. My wife, who actually didn't care much about Bitcoin for 4 years. I used to go to my kids' soccer games and cocktail parties and stuff like that, and I'd say I was in Bitcoin, and people would look at me like I was a criminal, or they feel sorry for me. They'd say things like, "Oh, I heard Bitcoin went out of business," or, "I heard the president of Bitcoin got arrested." I'm like, that's not how it works, but okay. And finally, it's going up. And I mean, it used to be that if the word Bitcoin were in a newspaper, even a local newspaper, it was sent all over the Bitcoin community. We were so excited. They said Bitcoin, they mentioned Bitcoin. Well, now it was front page news in every newspaper, and I was down. And my wife was like, "It's finally happening. Why are you so down?" I'm like, "Because this this is just a greed cycle. You know, there was a lot of people getting in, and that's okay. But there was a lot of people getting in that I knew would get out very quickly as well, as soon as it started going down. But ultimately, I resolved myself to this, which is that Bitcoin is going to enter the mainstream through a series of bubbles and pops. That's just the way it's going to be. And actually, speculation is the use case to get the mainstream into Bitcoin. Eventually, other use cases will be built on top of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain, but speculation and trading is a very good use case to get the mainstream into Bitcoin for now. I'm not advocating taking risks with money that people shouldn't take. In fact, what I say to people is, this is a long-term investment. If it's not going to be a 5-year investment minimum for you, you shouldn't get into it. If it is going to be a minimum of 5 years, you're crazy not to hold some Bitcoin.
Beyond value of Bitcoin, trading with the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin or others, there's an argument that the real value in this whole cycle is the technology that is beyond that. Distributed ledger technology, the blockchain technology, and the several use cases that we have seen, and even, especially the big banks, central banks, and all the regulators around the world with different approaches to regulatory sandboxes and things like that. So you're a Bitcoin guy. Your company still believes in Bitcoin. So do you see that this is the case for maybe mainstream, how central banks, the central bank governor of Brazil in his inaugurational speech 10 days ago just mentioned blockchain as a game changer for the industry, for FX transactions, for protocols that are old that need to be replaced, for security. So how do you see the other use cases of blockchain? Do you see blockchain is emerging as the winner in this, or this is in pace with the currencies themselves?
So this is where we need to talk a little bit about how blockchains work. I don't personally think it's possible to separate Bitcoin from the Bitcoin blockchain. I don't think it's possible to separate most currencies from their blockchains. So therefore, when someone like Jamie Dimon says, well, I believe in blockchain but not Bitcoin, it doesn't make sense. Because you need the token, in this case, the Bitcoin token, to incentivize people to maintain the Bitcoin blockchain. If you don't have the incentive mechanism, which is the cryptocurrency, you don't have the blockchain. So blockchains operate, back up a little bit. If I take out a dollar bill and I give it to Fernando, now he has it, I don't. I've paid him, the transaction is settled. As soon as he walks out that door, I can no longer pay Fernando directly. Okay? There has to be an intermediary. Bitcoin is the first time in history, human history, that I can pay Fernando directly and not be in the same place at the same time. Okay? Now people say, oh, what do you mean? Yeah, you could already pay him with PayPal. You could pay him $1 through PayPal, or you could pay him with Visa, MasterCard, or banks, or transfer. And I say, no, that is not paying Fernando directly. That is instructing PayPal to debit my account and credit Fernando's account. That is not paying him directly. Bitcoin is the first time in the history of humanity that you can pay someone directly and not be in the same place at the same time. I can send 10 cents to a farmer in Zimbabwe. I can send $10,000 to someone in that room. Okay. There's not going to be anybody to stop the transaction, say, I don't like what Ted's paying him for. Or, you know what, for this amount of money, I'm going to charge X percent. No. There's nothing. It's just a transaction on a Bitcoin blockchain that gets confirmed within an average of 10 minutes. The reason that I went into that is that a lot of the blockchains that are being created now are not decentralized enough for me to trust that someone won't step in and say, no, I don't like what Ted is paying Fernando for. In fact, we're a permission blockchain, so you can't even use our blockchain. We're a bunch of banks that are going to use blockchain technology to increase our efficiency, but we're going to maintain the same permissioned system that we had before. We're only going to let certain people on it at certain times. You can only use it to pay for certain things. We're going to control it. And so this whole blockchain, not Bitcoin thing is really people saying, we don't want the permissionless world that Bitcoin and Bitcoin blockchain unleash, much like a lot of people said, we don't like the internet and we don't like the risks associated with the internet, so we're going to create intranets. Some of you might remember in the mid-90s intranets. Corporations said, oh my God, this is vital information, we can't put it on a permissionless network. We're going to create our own private internet. No one talks about that anymore because they got left in the dustbin of history. And the same thing is going to happen to private blockchains. So I don't believe in the same blockchain, not Bitcoin. I think ultimately, we don't have one internet for video, another internet for text, another internet for pictures, another internet for commerce. We have one internet. And it works because we're all using the same protocol, the same set of rules, TCP/IP. With blockchain, we're also just going to have one set of rules, and it's going to be the Bitcoin protocol. Because it is the most secure, it's the largest network, it's the most decentralized network. So it's going to take some time, but ultimately we're going to settle in, and the equivalent of TCP/IP, what TCP/IP did for information, Bitcoin is going to do for value, for money.
What essentially you're saying is that the way that this goes forward is decentralized by nature, therefore technically not possible to regulate. And that gets to the very core of the concerns that we lawyers have, is how we fit this whole Bitcoin phenomenon into the existing regulations and how we talk to regulators and to regulate Bitcoin. Talking in Brazil with the central bank and with the CVM, we see that they are in a way afraid of validating what they don't understand deeply. But what you're saying is essentially this is not necessary because the system, the way it's built, it's self-regulatory in nature.
Yeah. So let's get into regulation. Let me first say I'll be transparent in this conversation. To me, I think the right to transact is akin to the right to communicate, right? And no one has the right to get in between me and somebody else that I want to pay, unless I'm committing an obvious crime in doing that, unless I'm buying something illegal. But the notion that financial services firms have basically been deputized to be law enforcement entities and to spy on their clients and customers and turn those clients and customers in to the authorities is noxious. And in fact, there was this 1976 Supreme Court case where a very, very good dissent in the Supreme Court case where the case was made, hey, if you know what someone is doing in their financial life, you know everything about them. And the notion that shouldn't be private, that there's no right to privacy, is nonsense. And all that means is that if you want to know what someone's financial transactions are, get a warrant. Probable cause. Same thing if you want to listen on the phone conversations, you get a warrant. You can do it. It's okay. But you got to go through a court first. So that's my own personal opinion. That is not the law. And because of that, we have to at Zappo and every other Bitcoin company and every other crypto company that you know of is pretty much always complying with know your customer, anti-money laundering laws, all this stuff. We do it because we have to. But the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is you don't have to use Zappo or you don't have to use any company that is going to ask you who you are and what you're paying for. All you have to do is download an open source wallet, and you can go on local Bitcoin bitcoins.com and meet someone on the street and buy Bitcoin from them for cash using a QR code on that open source wallet, and now you have Bitcoin. And you can now pay anybody in the world privately without any interference. So where I come out on regulation is that regulation isn't in and of itself a bad thing. I think it's probably a necessary thing as we get Bitcoin in the mainstream. But what is essential is that every individual have the option to go the other way and transact privately. And Bitcoin and open source wallets, the open source protocol Bitcoin enables that choice. And if you want an example of why that's important, it sounds kind of silly to a lot of people. Go to Venezuela. See what's happening in Venezuela right now. The government is desperate. They've been arresting Bitcoin miners as fast as they can find them. But the people are desperate for stored value that hasn't been abused or destroyed by the government, and they're using Bitcoin.
Any particular country or jurisdiction that you have seen that you think is an example for others in terms of how the regulatory environment is being set up? Or Estonia is a good example of a full digital place that has done it, and what can we use as an example for other jurisdictions thinking about the benefits of Bitcoin and blockchain, how to regulate and not affect the principles of the whole thing.
So I think Zappo, it's funny, backing up for a second, when I was on the investing side of the table instead of the entrepreneurial side of the table, I never wanted to invest in companies that were regulated or in regulated industries, because you just don't have control over the destiny. So people in healthcare, people in education tech, people in GovTech, people in all this, I'd say thank you, but no. Because no matter what they did, they always had to answer to a regulator, and the regulator could crush their business even if the company did everything right. So I made the exception for Bitcoin. It's funny. I think everybody that got into Bitcoin early, they didn't do it because they wanted to be regulated. I'll tell you that, I promise you that. But they are. And we've all realized that regulation is a very big part of our life, and we deal with it the best we can. One of the ways we deal with it is we go to those jurisdictions that are as crypto-friendly, as Bitcoin-friendly as possible. Those are, right now, roughly in order, I would say Switzerland, the UK, Singapore to a certain extent. Those are the major, I would put those in sort of the top tier. And then there are smaller jurisdictions like Gibraltar, Bermuda, Malta. I have a hard time putting Malta there because there's a reputational issue with Malta at the moment, but nevertheless they are very crypto-friendly, and they're trying to continue that. And generally all that means is that if you are a crypto company and you adhere to know your customer, anti-money laws, and certain anti-money laundering laws and certain other standards, you can do business. You can get a bank account. You can get a license. You can try and earn a living in crypto. That's really all it means. It's just that in some places, you can't even get a license. You can't even get a money transmitter license, or you can't get the equivalent of an MTL. You can't get the equivalent of a bank license. If you're involved in crypto, they won't do it. But there are good jurisdictions that allow you to.
In Brazil, the current view of the regulators is that at this point, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are assets, like any microphone, an iPad. So pretty much that's how they treat that to be outside of the scope of the regulation. I'm curious to what is your view on what exactly cryptocurrencies are in terms of the nature of the asset. Commodity, as many people advocate, a pure asset, currency, or something else?
So I think Bitcoin is a commodity money. So much like gold, it's digital gold, right? It can also be used as a medium of exchange, as a currency, but at the moment it's more akin to digital gold. over time, probably when maybe 1 billion people own Bitcoin, I think we could tip over into an environment where Bitcoin is used as a day-to-day medium exchange. I'm agnostic about that. I think that could be great, but I myself have a hard time envisioning me using Bitcoin to buy coffee. I believe in something called Gresham's Law, which is that bad money drives out good. So if you have two monies, you have Bitcoin and you have an Argentine peso, you're going to spend the peso and you're going to hold the Bitcoin, okay? Because you want to hold on to the good money and you're going to get rid of the bad money. So Gresham's Law says that Bitcoin may never be a day-to-day currency. It will only be essentially a commodity like gold, and that's okay. I think Bitcoin, this is again just my opinion, could be wrong, I'm not giving investment advice, but I think as only gold 2.0, you're looking at $500,000 a coin, and within 7 to 10 years. If it also becomes a day-to-day currency for 1 billion plus people around the world, then maybe you get to the $1 billion a coin that some people have talked about.
There's a question from the audience here through the app. So that is, what excites you the most and what scares you the most about Bitcoin? And then let me add something that we discussed. And talking to people about what questions they'd like me to ask you on this panel, some of them were much to the scare side than the excited side. So people, you have told me, and I quote, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the biggest opportunity that we have since the internet. And let's take a bite of this apple, because I didn't do that in the early 2000s. But somebody, I've spoken to some people that said, well, this is a major problem, that there may be a scam going on, so this is a potential problem to happen, waiting to happen, so, and this ties to the question, so what excites you and what scares you most about Bitcoin these days?
Well, so I'll answer what scares me, because I think I've been covering what excites me since we started. But I think it's important to distinguish between behavior that companies and individuals engage in with Bitcoin and Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin is a technology, and money itself is a social technology, right? We all agree through some animal spirit that this green piece of paper that says US dollar on it is something we value and it has a certain value, and we can say, well, it's because it's backed by the United States government. But okay, so the United States government is trillions of dollars in debt. We're making assumptions about their ability to grow out of it, blah, blah, blah. It's a social technology that we all agree to participate in. When someone engages in a scam using money, that has nothing to do with the money itself. Okay? And we've seen all sorts of scams. They pop up every week. Because this money is natively digital, it lends itself to scams, especially when you have a debit card attached to it. So one of our most successful retail products for Zappo was our debit card. When you swiped it, you immediately debited your Bitcoin account with us, and the merchant was paid in fiat. A lot of pyramid schemes popped up using that debit card, and we tried to shut them down, but it was hard. Human nature will always be human nature. And Bitcoin is no more susceptible to scams or criminality than cash. In fact, much less so. Every transaction that's ever occurred using Bitcoin is viewable on the Bitcoin blockchain. Going back to the Genesis block, the first transaction. We could get on the internet right now and see it. Now what we will see is a certain amount of Bitcoin moving from one Bitcoin address to another Bitcoin address. We won't see names, we won't see the purpose of the transaction or anything else. But what law enforcement is figuring out is that if you know enough about certain addresses on the Bitcoin blockchain, which because Zappo does KYC and Coinbase does KYC, and you can find out information about a lot of addresses. That's enough to forensically figure out what's going on the blockchain and where the bad transactions are and where the scams are. Bitcoin is actually a bad way to commit crime. It's a bad way to perpetrate scams. Cash is much, much better. Cash is truly anonymous. So I think the whole notion of Bitcoin's connection with illicit behavior and scams has been way overblown. And I just want to point out also that new technology. So criminals have the highest risk, highest margin businesses, right? So when a new technology comes up, they are the first people to exploit it. It's actually a fact that the criminals were the first people to adopt automobiles and they robbed banks with them. And there were policemen chasing them on horseback. And nowadays, you know, in the States, police have the best cars, but it wasn't always that way. The internet, same way. In the beginning, it's all pornography and gambling and this and that. Over time, new technologies come into the mainstream and the criminality, that aspect of it is marginalized. What excites me is we have for the first time, what excites me is that we have an opportunity for the first time to take 2 to 3 billion people who can live only in cash, and oftentimes in cash that is extremely volatile, that currency is extremely volatile. They keep it under the mattress and the next day it has half its value. We can now enable them to store their value in something that is much more consistent and much more trustable. It's going to take a lot of time, but I think this is the first step towards all human beings participating in the global economy.
There is one more here from Laura from the audience. How has the infrastructure evolved to reduce the time of transactions in the Bitcoin world?
Yeah. One of the criticisms of Bitcoin has been that it's not evolving quickly enough. And one of the ways that it's failing to evolve is that transactions still take an average of 10 minutes to confirm. If you go up to the Starbucks point of sale and you buy a coffee with Bitcoin, no one's waiting around 10 minutes for that to confirm. You know, you just can't live that way. So there's been a lot of pressure to try and increase speed of transactions in some way. And also we found back in 2017 that only a certain amount of transactions, we knew this, but it was hard to experience it, only a certain amount of transactions can be confirmed every 10 minutes. The average block, so what a blockchain is a chain of blocks. And inside each of those blocks are transactions that are confirmed and added to the chain of previous blocks. Okay, that's a blockchain. And what we're finding in 2017 is that the Bitcoin blockchain at 1 megabyte inside, each block is 1 megabyte, that's not big enough. As Bitcoin got very popular, people were sending transactions and they weren't making it into the next block. And they were waiting for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So people started adding transaction fees to their transactions, which would pay miners to include their transaction in the next block. And pretty soon, a transaction fee market developed. Okay? This is the important point. People were paying extra money to send their Bitcoin, so people might pay $10 to send $20 of Bitcoin. It was crazy, it was broke. And we said, my God, Bitcoin needs to evolve, we need to increase the block size. And I was one of them. We had 16 companies sign something called the New York Agreement, where we said, okay, we're going to go to 2 megabyte block size, and we're going to implement something called segregated witness, which is a technology that helps scale. And we thought we had solved the world's problem. We had made Bitcoin scale, we had figured this out, and we had pushed the future of Bitcoin along. A holy war erupted, and the Bitcoin community, a large part of the Bitcoin community said, guess what, Zappo? Guess what, Coinbase? Guess what? You don't own Bitcoin. You don't control Bitcoin. We don't care about your crisis. We're not increasing the block size. And so we actually lost. And I realized at that point, oh my God, maybe Bitcoin's not going to be used for payments. But that was also the moment where Bitcoin became the immutable, unchangeable, uncensorable, uncontrollable blockchain. In other words, the blockchain that you want to use, the one that can't be manipulated, can't be changed. It is going to be the one and only immutable record of transactions for the world. If it's going to scale for currency purposes, okay, getting to the heart of the question, it's going to have to come on a second layer, okay? A second layer on top of the blockchain. That's the only hope for Bitcoin to become used as a day-to-day currency. And right now, the Lightning Network is one very interesting project. If it's not the Lightning Network, it might be side chains, but something other than the Bitcoin blockchain itself needs to be in play in order for Bitcoin to scale to be used as a day-to-day currency.
Going to that, another one from the audience. What do you think about Bitcoin's governance process, since we touched on the New York Agreement?
I used to want Bitcoin to have governance. Now I freaking hate governance. I don't even like the word. Bitcoin doesn't need governance. I don't want Bitcoin to have governance. As soon as you have Bitcoin governance, the government of whatever jurisdiction wants to control it or change it is going to say, hey Ted, are you on the board of that, the Bitcoin Governance Foundation or whatever stupid organization? We need to talk to you. And in fact, bring all your colleagues, because we have some things we want to tell you about what Bitcoin's going to have to do. Governance is a weakness, not a strength. So that's the answer.
Another one. How are institutional investors looking at the space? That's a very good one.
For 3 years, I mean, Zappo, half its business is doing custody for institutional investors in Bitcoin. And we know pretty much who's in the game and who's interested. And there's a lot of people interested. What I've come to believe is that most institutional investors are going to end up investing in a fund rather than buying Bitcoin directly themselves, okay? And right now, there's no impetus for them to jump in. It's unfortunate, I gotta tell you. I almost want to fall on my knees and beg you to get into Bitcoin. Not to buy Bitcoin. You don't need to take my word for it, but to research it. I almost want to beg you, if you take one thing away from this conference, or today and tomorrow, it's study Bitcoin, find out about it. Because I have never known anybody who has gone deep on Bitcoin and come out and said, there's nothing there. It's virtually always the opposite. Very much the opposite. Okay? Institutional investors will come in, but they're probably going to wait until Bitcoin is racing past 20,000. And this is why I made that comment about you researching Bitcoin. Everybody else is pro-cyclical. They wait until the price of Bitcoin goes to 10,000, to 15,000, to 20,000. Oh, now I better get in. Who's that guy at Zappo? Yeah, call him. We need to set up an account. We need to buy it up. Meanwhile, we're sitting here saying, this is what's going to happen. We've been through these phases before. We see the pattern. Buy some Bitcoin now. Start making your position. And people say, no, we're waiting. No, I don't want to convince my boss. No, I don't want to do that. So they'll wait until the price is 20,000. It's crazy.
Well, what about, have you seen or investments in Bitcoin-related businesses such as Zappo, such as the exchanges? So what is the institutional investors' interest in investing in businesses that deal with exchange of Bitcoins or are pretty much blockchain in nature?
Yeah, so in terms of venture capital, like investing in Bitcoin companies, the companies that have been done well in Bitcoin and crypto in general are ones that are at the point of transaction. So the exchanges have done well, they made a ton of money. I think there'll be a lot of consolidation there. I think it'll end up being a market much like the stock market where there's one large exchange per region. So I don't think that's a great business to be getting into. There will be a wave of applications that are built on top of Bitcoin or whatever blockchain. But we're a few years away from that. I think we're still in 93, 94 with the internet, before the Netscape browser, before a lot of the companies got built on top of the internet. There will be a time where being a venture capitalist in the blockchain space is a very, very lucrative place to be. That time is not yet.
Final one here because our time is running out. So, talking about your business, Zapo, what is your strategic view going forward? So you know, position yourself as a more of a market infrastructure company, as a custodian, as a, you know, involved in the industry, or you see more trading? So what is your view for strategic for your business, and where do you think that the good businesses are in the industry?
Yeah. So we see a lot of, Zappo is an infrastructure company. We're a basic wallet and vault. The vault is for use for long-term investment. We put it in the cold storage. I think we are the most secure place to keep your Bitcoin. I feel confident in saying that. We also have a wallet for managing your Bitcoin day to day. The first set of companies in every technological revolution are infrastructure companies, very basic companies. So the first internet companies that probably most of us interacted with were email companies, email providers, you know, the most basic thing. That's sort of the stage we're at here in crypto. Eventually there will be, this is a point I think is important to understand. What the blockchain is doing is settling a transfer of value between one person or institution and another without any intermediary. It's essentially doing it automatically, okay? What's really happening there is the transfer of ownership of a certain amount of Bitcoin. So blockchain is the internet of ownership. The first application built on it is the transfer of value. But ultimately, anything that's owned for the first time will not require a notary. It won't require someone to certify, yes, he owned this and now he owns it. We transferred ownership, let me stamp that, sign here, blah, 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 no. So if you can think of anything that requires notary or certification, that will eventually go online. It's almost as if this whole offline world that just hasn't been able to exist online will now move online. It will take years for that to happen, but what we're really talking about is finally, through blockchain, the ability to transfer ownership without intermediaries. There's going to be a ton of billion-dollar companies built on that. But we're several years away from that. And every company that comes along with an idea for that, I have to compare against buying more Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, you're almost buying a piece of this new internet, and you can get out of it. You're liquid, you can get out of it anytime.
Okay, with that, we come to a close. Thank you everyone for sending your questions. Thank you, Ted, for a very interesting talk. Thank you very much.